Look at the outer edges of a spiral galaxy like NGC 3198. The stars here are moving far too fast. This chart shows the expected relationship between radius and velocity. Based strictly on visible stars and gas, the orbital speed should drop off past the dense center. But actual observations show a different result. The velocity remains flat, extending into empty space. The standard cosmological model solves this mathematical deficit by adding a massive halo of invisible dark matter around the galaxy to provide the extra gravitational pull. Our 50-year search for this unseen particle rests on the assumption that missing velocity requires missing mass. We can approach this tension differently. We can test a mathematical modification to how gravity responds to the matter we can actually see. This framework links gravitational response to local matter density and its spatial gradient, the rate matter changes from one point to the next. To test this rigorously, the mechanism must be embedded directly within the architecture of general relativity. A precise mathematical modification to the relativistic field equation can generate the forces needed to flatten galactic rotation curves using visible light alone. We start by anchoring the model in the non-relativistic weak field limit of general relativity. This is the baseline for analyzing gravitational structures like galaxies. This equation defines the weak field metric, mapping out the geometry of spacetime through its time and spatial coordinates. Within this geometry, we isolate the gravitational potential, phi, and the spatial curvature potential, psi. Relativistic time dilation emerges from this governing potential, tying the passage of time directly to the geometry of the field. A credible modification to gravity at galactic scales must successfully operate within the strict geometric constraints of this metric. The metric leads to the standard Poisson equation, which links the gravitational potential to local mass density. To account for the structure of matter, we extend this equation by adding a divergence form correction term. This operator relies on two specific parameters, lambda, which dictates the dimensionless coupling strength, and L star, defining the characteristic length scale of the interaction. Finally, the exponent n controls the exact sensitivity of the field to variations in density. In environments like our solar system, the density of matter is relatively high and uniform. The gradient remains small, keeping the correction suppressed and allowing standard Newtonian gravity to dominate. At the edges of a galaxy, the visible matter abruptly ends. That sudden lack of mass causes the gradient operator to spike. That mathematical spike generates an effective boost to the overall gravitational potential, precisely where the stars run out. Relying strictly on a localized density gradient poses a problem. Gravity operates continuously over expansive, massive fields. The mathematical solution is to convolve the local gradient with a modified Yukawa kernel. Think of the physical drop-off of galactic matter as an isolated point of gravitational stress. The Yukawa convolution acts to smooth that response, spreading the gravitational influence outward over the length scale defined by L star. This smearing effect provides the sustained, long-range acceleration normally attributed to a dark matter halo. To test if this theory works, we run the math through an axisymmetric model of a baryonic galactic disk. We define the total effective radial acceleration acting on the stars as the sum of the standard Newtonian pole and our new gradient-induced acceleration. This chart shows the standard Newtonian acceleration decaying as the distance from the galactic center increases. As the Newtonian force drops, the gradient-induced acceleration rises in tandem, triggered by the fading density of the visible disk. When combined, these two components yield a stabilized, flat effective acceleration, extending to the outer edges of the simulation. This stabilized acceleration translates directly into the final circular velocity of the orbiting stars. The numerical solver reconstructs a perfectly flattened outer rotation curve, relying entirely on the dynamics of visible matter. The standard lambda CDM model provides high-precision fits for cosmological data, though it relies on undetected dark sectors. Conversely, models like MOND attempt to solve the galactic problem by imposing acceleration thresholds. The ultimate stress test for any dark matter alternative is the extreme dynamics found in merging systems like the bullet cluster. The density gradient framework identifies structural inhomogeneity as the source of anomalous gravity, diverging from models focused on raw mass or acceleration thresholds. This approach suggests the missing mass problem stems from a misinterpretation of the underlying gravitational mechanics. This is an effective field model. The Yukawa kernel is phenomenologically defined, and awaits derivation from a fundamental action. The next step for validation requires least squares parameter fitting against the full Spark database of real galaxy observations. Beyond that, the model must calculate whale potentials to solve cluster lensing and integrate with a CMB Boltzmann code to prove its viability at a cosmological scale. The density gradient framework provides a sound hypothesis, offering a universe held together by visible light, ready to face the empirical crucible of astronomical data.